So today we're going to talk about getting more done in less time. Every manager's favorite topic, speed. How do I get as much out of my team as I possibly can? Now I call this presentation the power of no. And this is because no is really an unexpected or counterintuitive way to get more out of your team. Let me explain what I mean. We're going to start off with Steve Jobs. He liked to say that people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 good ideas that there are, right? This makes sense. We have to say no to a bunch of other stuff or we're going to focus on the one thing. But how do we do this at scale? In order to get to where I'm trying to get to, I want to back up a little bit and talk about lean theory. In lean, we separate speed into two separate components, throughput and cycle time. We're trying to maximize throughput and minimize cycle time. Let me explain what I mean. So throughput can be thought of as using a highway as a metaphor. It's the number of cars that a stretch of highway can process in any given amount of time, right? So you have a mile of highway, and how many cars could maximally that highway use in an hour, say, right? Now, if we cram the highway full of cars, we end up with something that doesn't look very pretty, right? It doesn't look like we're maximizing throughput. If I push all the cars I can possibly push onto the highway, then I'm going to end up with actually minimum throughput because everything's sort of bumping into each other, right? This is the equivalent of saying yes to everything, essentially. So what we need to do in order to maximize throughput is introduce slack into the system. This is, again, the language of lean. We introduce slack by limiting the number of cars on the highway. We limit work in process. We limit WIP. This, again, is lean language. This is why highways have metering lights on them, or on-ramps have metering lights on them, right? It's so that we can keep the number of cars to a minimum on the highway, or to a minimum maximum, right? We want the maximum number of cars that we can have on the highway while keeping that highway flowing, while keeping it moving along, right? And so we have to figure out what that WIP limit is and then limit the number of cars on the highway because we want to introduce slack, but slack isn't something. Slack is the lack of things. So we actually have to focus on the thing we can focus on, which is the cars. Now, cycle time, on the other hand, is the average amount of time it takes me to get my thing. So for this, we're going to use a coffee shop as a metaphor because I spend a lot of time getting coffee in coffee shops. If I walk into a coffee shop, I see a long line, I might turn around and walk out, and that's because I'm interpreting or I'm intuiting that it's going to take me a long time to get my cup of coffee. In other words, I'm intuiting that the cycle time in this coffee shop is particularly long. So really the only way that we can minimize cycle time, shorten cycle time, is by shortening the queue. Now, this happens naturally in a coffee shop, right? As people walk in, they see the long line, they might walk out and go to another coffee shop or make another kind of decision. But in a business environment, we don't really have that luxury, right? We can't really self-regulate our lines in this way. So we have to come up with different things. So we keep queues short by saying no or not yet, right? Because as soon as I say yes to something, as soon as I say, I'll get that for you, I've essentially put it in line. I've essentially started the clock ticking on it, and it's essentially becoming late every day that I'm not able to work on it. So again, if I say yes to everything, I'm going to kind of create a very, very long line for myself, metaphorically or quite literally in my project management tool. So basically, in theory, we want to keep our queues short and we want to limit WIP. So we limit WIP by not picking up an item until we've completed an item, right? We just sort of say, look, we're only going to work on 4 or 5 items at once. We have to complete an item before we start another one. Then we have this queue of committed work that we're not yet working on, but we've said that we're going to work on. So that's technically in queue. And then we keep this backlog or this blob of possible work, all this stuff that's not prioritized yet, not committed. And we want to make sure that the committed, we're looking out maybe a month in advance, maybe 2 weeks in advance, but not too far in advance. Because what we know is that the more time passes, the better our information gets as well, right? So we want to commit to things kind of in a just-in-time sort of way. So this is what we're going for. Now, where does no come in? Well, so short queues matter the most, really, when it comes to trying to increase speed in a system. If we increase throughput, but queues stay the same, it means that we're probably making people rush, so things go faster, but quality is going to drop. If throughput stays the same, but we shorten the queues, customers are going to get their stuff faster, right? We're actually decreasing cycle time. And if throughput increases and queues shorten, customers are probably going to get their stuff much faster. So there are things that we can do that increase throughput that don't necessarily cause people to rush and cause quality to drop, but we max out on that pretty quickly. So really we want to turn our attention mostly to queues when we're trying to speed up our system. So this is where no gets really magical. So if we let our team say no, if we let our team say we can't, that they're full, that they can't do work, that this is how much work they can do, and they can sort of select their own amount of work and process, they're able to both focus and keep their queues short. This is going to speed up the flow of the work. It makes people happy. It preserves quality. It also does something else which I find really, really important, and this is what I want to illustrate over here on the right. This is what I think of as the planning onion, right? You have teams at the bottom, middle management in the middle, and the senior leadership team at the top. What the word no happening from a team, or a team saying the word no, what that does is it sends a signal up the management layers about the actual capacity that the organization has. One of the founders of Lean, Edwards Deming, I'm sorry, I'm getting his name wrong, he liked to say that when there's fear in a system or fear in an organization, that the leaders are going to get bad data. And the bad data that we get bad data when we're forcing people to say yes to everything, because we get bad data about what our capacity actually is. So let your people say no, speed up your teams, improve the quality of your culture, and preserve the quality of your product. And if you want to talk to me about how to do this in your organization, feel free to reach out. This is something that I do for a living. Anyway, thanks for your time and attention. Take care.